When was the last time you felt anxious? We have all felt it at some point because anxiety can hit when you're preparing for an important presentation or when your fridge breaks the day before you're hosting a holiday meal. Yes, this actually happened to me. Or you can feel anxious when you're stuck in traffic and running late, or when a fire is burning towards you, which is actually what is happening to me as I am recording this podcast during the Los Angeles wildfires. And when you feel that way, some form of anxiety, what do people tell you? Just take a deep breath. Okay, that breathing thing is highly overrated. Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Nina Savelle Rocklin, psychoanalyst, here to turn your subconscious into your superpower. Breathing only takes you so far when it comes to anxiety or anything. By the way, if you've ever given birth, you probably know you cannot breathe through those contractions. No, you cannot breathe away pain, stress, or anxiety. At least most people can't. Oh, unless you're taking a deep breath while giving birth to scream, "Give me drugs now." That is a deep breath I can get behind. Okay. So today I'm going to share some practical tools you can use to manage anxiety that have nothing to do with deep breaths. So as a psychoanalyst, I like to say, go deep or go home. I had a friend from Texas and he used to say, go big or go home. Apparently, it's a Texas thing. By the end of this episode, you will have a deeper understanding of anxiety and you'll know practical techniques to manage it. Again, no deep breathing necessary. So let's get started. Let's start by talking about why deep breathing isn't the solution to anxiety. It's true that breathing exercises can calm our nervous system, but it is limited because deep breathing can't address our thoughts or change our perspective. Anxiety has to do with thoughts, the meaning behind the situation. So you might notice that even when you've calmed your body, that knot in your stomach or tightness in your chest is still there. Why? Because you are still anxious, and you're still anxious because of what is going on in your mind. For example, many of us feel anxiety about situations we think will happen in the future. Anxiety is rooted in those what if thoughts we all have. What if I mess up? What if things go wrong? What if this never happens? What if that does happen? We come up with all these scenarios because on some level, we think that if we can imagine it, we can somehow prevent it or deal with it more easily. But it backfires because most of the time, those what if fears never come true. And then we have real anxiety in the present about a future event that may not happen. That is not good. So let's consider one small semantic change. Instead of what if, which is fear about the future, consider what is, which is what is true in the moment. What are the facts? So what if is fear, what is, those are the facts. Let me share an example with you. So Cheryl came to me with overwhelming anxiety about her finances. She would lie awake at night. What if I can't pay my bills next month? What if something unexpected happens and I lose everything? What if? She was driving herself crazy and she was anxious all the time. So together, we worked on shifting her focus from what if all these terrible things happen to what is. We grounded her in the present moment, asking questions like, what do I know for sure right now? What is the reality of my financial situation today, this moment? And the truth was, Cheryl was managing her money just fine. There was no immediate threat to her finances. But where does this anxiety come from? Her grandmother had lived through the Depression and lived as if she was going to lose everything at any moment, something she inadvertently communicated to Cheryl. By focusing on the facts of her own life, Cheryl was able to pull herself out of that anxiety and feel safer in the present and about the future. So the next time you feel anxious, take a moment and ask yourself, what is true right now? What is real? What are the facts? Focus on those facts, not on your fears. This helps you shift from imagining the worst to staying present with what's actually happening. So here's an exercise to start. Let's go a little deeper. So reflect on a recent moment of anxiety. Think about the last time you felt anxious and ask yourself, what was I imagining during that time? What were my what if thoughts? And then shift your focus to, well, what was really happening? For example, if you were nervous about a presentation at work, you might have thought, what if I say the wrong thing? What if they ask me a question I can't answer? What if I just flub up everything and look stupid? But the reality was you were prepared and you knew the material. So that's the beginning of shifting your focus from fear to facts, from what if to what is. Another thing you can do is name the fear behind anxiety. And that's a really powerful way to deal with anxiety. Identify what's really behind it. Like with Rachel's experience. She struggled with intense anxiety whenever she had to attend social gatherings where there was a group of people. Like she was fine with a few people, but if there was a group, she did not feel comfortable. She felt very self-conscious and uneasy, and she felt very anxious. So she's fine one-on-one, but a group, that made her nervous. And she would imagine all kinds of things. What if no one talks to me? What if I say something awkward? What if I embarrass myself? What if they don't like me? But when we explored it further, we found that her anxiety, it really wasn't about the events themselves. She had a fear of being judged by other people. And that is something that started early in her childhood when she felt like she didn't measure up to her family's standards. They were all academic people, professors, university researchers, stuff like that, all very academic. And she was an artist. So they didn't understand her. They were like these left brain people with this right brain person. And she sometimes felt like they not only didn't understand her, they didn't like her. That's the sense that she had. So Rachel's family was the original group where she felt awkward, where she didn't fit in, where she felt like maybe they didn't like her. Maybe she wasn't measuring up. So she wasn't anxious about the party itself. She was anxious about not being accepted by the people at the party. And once she named that fear of judgment, fear that she wouldn't be accepted because of that judgment, she was able to address it more directly because she realized where it came from. Naming the fear and recognizing that it came from her original feelings of not fitting in and being judged by her family helped her be more present and experience people at gatherings as they were in the here and now and not as if they were her family, not like people that used to be, but people that were as they were in the present. So think about a situation that makes you anxious. What's the underlying fear? Are you afraid of failure, rejection, judgment? Take a few moments, name the fear, and think about the earliest time that you actually experienced that. Because if you're worried about it now, it means you experienced it already, and you're afraid of re-experiencing it. So this exercise will give you a clue as to the roots of your anxiety. Another way to challenge anxiety is to look at black and white thinking. Black and white thinking, that creates anxiety. When we see situations in extremes, either as total success or complete failure, we're setting ourselves up. When it's either perfect or it's disaster, we're putting pressure on ourselves to live up to some absolutely unreachable standard. And this kind of rigid thinking leaves no room for flexibility or any kind of reality. So even small decisions can feel like high stakes choices and create anxiety. It's the mindset that says, if I don't do this perfectly, everything's going to fall apart. These all or nothing thoughts trigger anxiety because they magnify the potential consequences, creating a constant state of worry. Instead, I like to say, look at the color between black and white, because shades of gray now has a whole other connotation. Can't say that anymore. Anyway, shades of gray, not so appealing. I like color. All right, so example, Lily. Lily, she had a lot of anxiety about making decisions that might disappoint other people. One time, Lily had to decide whether to go to a close friend's dinner party or stay home to work on a work presentation for the next day. If she went to the party, she was worried about not finishing the presentation and then potentially disappointing her boss, getting in trouble, all the things, getting fired. She took it to the nth degree. But if she stayed home, she feared letting her friend down and missing out on a fun experience, and maybe her friend would be upset with her. So it just felt like a lose-lose scenario, and she was anxious and she couldn't see any way out. So we looked at the color between black and white. And guess what? Lily went to her friend's party and she had fun. But she also spent an hour before the party getting ready for the presentation. So this helped her feel more prepared and reduce the pressure that she was putting on herself. It was not an either or situation. It was okay, how do I resolve this? How do I do both? Instead of, I can only do one or the other. Have some flexibility and think that way. And the color between black and white are possibilities. So by balancing her personal and professional responsibilities, Lily discovered that you didn't have to sacrifice either. You could do both. So it was a win-win. Yay. Okay, and why? This is important. Why was she so afraid of disappointing either her friend or her boss? Because as a child, whenever she got a bad grade or screwed up, her parents told her they were very disappointed in her. Lily, we're very disappointed in you. And she equated that with a withdrawal of love. So disappointing anyone felt unbearable. Even though her parents were not saying, we don't love you anymore, they were saying, we're very disappointed in you. She interpreted that as, now we don't love you anymore. And she just took that with her into her adult life. So take a moment and think of a situation that's making you anxious right now. How are you